Thank you for tuning in to Grieving Voices. I am excited that you've hit play on this episode because this is part two with Dr. Amirah Hall. If you have not listened to episode one, it was episode 155 and it went live and was published on August 15th, 2023. And in that episode, she talks about her experience of having I'm an end of life doula. I had death on my mind, I guess. A near death experience while in Egypt and what that experience was like for her. But in this episode, I kind of wanted to into a little bit more about how the gift presented itself in her life and what that experience was like. And, the skeptics that probably came along with that, and probably the grief too of realizing that you have this gift and what do you do with it? How do you use it for the good of humanity, and the impact it probably had on her life as well. Also, we're going to talk about some spiritual practices that all of us can do to sharpen our tool of intuition, and maybe some advice too for empaths or highly sensitive people who are really sensitive to their environment or subtle energies and things like that. So I'm really excited to dig in. And we're going to also talk about something that happened on the previous episode. And so if you haven't listened, you'll want to go back to a specific part of that first episode with Dr. Amirah Hall. And we'll dig into that too a little bit. But here we go. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Amirah Hall. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure.
Okay, well, let's just start off by saying in the last episode, around 37 minutes and 55 seconds in, around that time, you started talking about your experience of coming across Deepak Chopra, who was very helpful on your journey, as you talked about in the last episode. But when I was editing that episode, there was an audible male, very distinct male voice that said, yes. And I want you to go back to that first episode. I left it in intentionally. I had a little teaser in the show notes. I don't know if you caught it, if you did listen to it, but now go back and check it out. And this really ties into the skepticism that there might be out in the world, because I had my entire family listen to it. I think I listened to it a dozen times myself. I am a natural skeptic. It takes a lot to I want the proof, right? I'm always looking for the truth and the proof of I want evidence. And as I've been working on myself more and more over the years, I'm more understanding of energy and subtle energies and how, you know, I mean, I went from believing that when you died, you went in the ground and that was it as a child, like that was my understanding of death, to becoming an end of life doula, understanding that death can be this beautiful transition, that it can be something that you can choose how it happens and plays out with dignity if you are blessed with given that choice. Not everybody is, right? With terminal illness, you have a say in that. But yeah, my perspective of death has greatly changed, put it that way. So when you started to realize that this was your gift, around where were you in your life, and how did you respond to that first knowing or inkling?
Well, I don't know that it was. Look, I'm very much like you, very skeptical and discerning. And even though I had been a seeker of truth and light or spirituality for a good part of my life, I was still extremely skeptical. And because there were so many far out ideas, I think being discerning, period, is a good thing. I think it's sort of a protective and a guide to help us. But there's a certain point when what literally happened was I was a six-figure income earner back in 1998. I was doing extremely well. I was in sales for a high-tech industry, selling service contracts for backup emergency power equipment. And I was doing really, really well. But when I came back after my near-death experience, my whole world fell apart. I was depressed again. I was lost. I was losing friends. I was explaining some of the situations and experiences I had in Egypt were very metaphysical, very mysterious, like watching, going by these granite statues and then seeing one of them wink at you, or watching a hand raise, their arms are straight by their side. And I literally saw like the hand lifted as if to wave at me while I was going that by. And I wasn't the only one that saw it. Like my mouth would drop and I would just literally go like my eyes wide open. Did I just see that? And look to my left or my right, and other people saw it too. And you're like, well, that was our validation in the moment that we weren't losing our minds. And so many mysterious things happened to us in that journey. When I came back home and I tried to explain some of these things, I mean, it just goes off deaf ears, right? It's just people like, yeah, right. What were you guys smoking something over there? Or, why do you think that was so? Or maybe you were dehydrated. So all these, we had prepared ourselves. We'd been meditating. We're so immersed into letting go of our perception of what we think we know is true or not. I had no preconceived ideas of a granite statue waving at me. It was beyond my scope of possibilities. And so that started everything. But then when I would interview, okay, so my life fell apart, lost my friends, quit my hobbies. I just wasn't the same. I knew something was radically different after my NDE. But when I started feeling somewhat better, I started interviewing and going to a company, and I'd get to the third interview thinking, okay, I got this. It's a slam dunk, right? They didn't hire me. And it happened 3 times where I'd get to the third interview and then they didn't take me on. So that was a critical moment for me. And I remember the thought, okay, I surrender. Now what? Now what? And I had been starting a process of learning how to release energy blocks. That was my form of healing. When I found a healer that said to me, oh, you've got stuck energy, I went, great. Give me a path, give me a solution, give me the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, whatever, I will do it. And that's where I started. So I started feeling really good and started going back on my track. But universe shut me down. And like I said, I had no intention of doing this work professionally. And so I started to, I think I don't even know if it was a realization that it was a gift. I didn't think of it as a gift. I just knew it was now my purpose. Because what I've come to believe in training thousands of people over the last 2 decades is that everybody has the abilities. I don't know that they're gifts. I think it's just a matter of us developing. Like, we can all learn to speak English. We can go learn French too. We can learn to write. Some people learn to, write poetry, and they start immediately, they're good at it. But as they develop, it gets better and better and better. Same thing with a sculptor. We could all go learn take the class, but you might be exceptional at it. I might suck, right? Or mine are pretty rugged. So we can all develop these abilities because they're deep within us. They, like a statue, literally, we have to start carving and shedding the outer layers to reveal the inner beauty. It's all there. I believe that our Creator, so magnificent, has input us with this, let's call it a software, let's call it a divine design, and it's there for us to discover. And so all of our journey is here to explore and to reveal that inner light, that power, that ability to shine or redirect in whatever capacity we're ready or want to discover.
I mean, there's a lot of people listening who can resonate and relate to their life falling apart and who have not had a near death experience.
Right.
And so when you are in that lowest of lows, what are some suggestions for people to start to maybe open themselves up spiritually? Because I think what happens is, especially with grief, trauma, things like that, like we become spiritually thirsty.
Yes.
Our spiritual life greatly suffers because we start to shut down. We don't see ourselves clearly. We don't see other people clearly. It's almost like we're zombies in our own life
Yeah.
experience. You know, you're just going with emotions and on autopilot.
Yeah.
Are
I refer to that as walking in the land of paper dolls, sleepwalking. And we're
ah
just going through the motions. And yeah, life is bitter, ugly, flat, two-dimensional, and we become apathetic. We become detached. We are angry. We are angry, and well, depressed is sort of a broad, extension or description of the all the feelings, but lackluster, unmotivated, just not giving a shit, about anything or anybody. And it's a deep-rooted anger and fear. So for me, when I lost interest in my hobbies and my artwork, I was creating jewelry at the time, and I had built a business and selling internationally, and I just didn't care anymore. Those were my signs. And I think when you're that low, for me, it got to a point where I didn't have any family nearby. My family didn't really get it, what I was going through. They were really detached also, they were in Canada. So I didn't have a big support group at all. And so it came down to, I guess, a switch in my head. Like, if I'm going to survive, I'm going to have to do whatever it takes. And none of the other possibilities or what was presented to me, maybe it was I wasn't exposed. Remember, this was back in 1998. So now we've got this plethora of resources, and that can also be overwhelming. I think it's to the opposite extreme, right? But I sort of plunked around until something resonated, and that for me was energy work. Now, when people say energy work today, it's not the same. I know there's a lot of energy workers listening to this, but pardon me, being sort of the old crone on the block here, I would say that a lot of people really haven't done their work. That's what I'm witnessing. They haven't done the true deep work because they didn't have a system that they could rely on consistently, and or having a mentor that will stretch them, reach them beyond what that limit or that ceiling that they can't see, their subconscious mind. So the tools that I learned were really about me surviving. It was just about me doing something different because I couldn't take the pain anymore. And sometimes we just have to get to that breaking point of just going, I can't effing take this anymore. I'm just done. So it's either die, completely let yourself sink into that deepest abyss possible, or, okay, I'm going to kick. Like if you're being pulled in a current riptide, you just all of a sudden go, I'm going to kick bloody hell. I am going to kick so hard. I'm going to move out of this. And the tools that I teach, I call them quantum energy tools. They're simple guided visualizations. And quite honestly, I didn't believe in them when I started. But I'm just like, what the hell? I got nothing else here, so I'm going to go for it. And I created these tools that I use to this day, myself, every single day. And all my students and all my trainings and all of the profound transformations that I've witnessed have been sorry about that, have been based on these basic principles. And the number one thing, whether you mention empaths, you mention sensitive people, you mention depressed people, you mention anybody that's sick, we don't know how to ground. Nobody taught us how to ground. You know, every device you buy now has 3 prongs on it, right? The electrical appliances. The third prong is a grounding wire. Why? Because if there's a surge of energy, if there's a surge of something, it will not blow up your device. But we get surged and bombarded all day long, and we have no way to discharge. It gets stuck in what we don't even understand, is what I call the energy field, the aura. And some people think they know what it is. They say they want to see it. Well, why? What if you see it? The reason is not to see, oh, you've got a happy life, or I don't know if the gardeners are here. You're not picking that up? Okay.
It's okay.
Learning how to manage our energy field, I believe, is part of our purpose. All of us. Is as we remember the truth of who we are, it's that you're light, you are energy, and this energy is continually moving. For anybody that says put up that white light around your aura, I'm going to say, to that, because it's almost like hitting the pause button on your remote control. It freezes everything. It slows everything down so nothing can move. The idea here is that we want to keep our energy moving. We want to release the block. So back to grounding. So that's the very first thing I teach, based on, okay, they talk there's all these devices now. I call them shiny objects. You can go and you can, buy the grounding mat, and you put it under you while you're working, and you go out earthing, as they say, walking in the grass. Okay, there may be some validity to that, because I know I sure feel good when I go in nature and just let go. What do we do, right? We just let go. Why? What is it about that energy that just helps us? So I visualize from the base of my spine, I attach a cord. I like to imagine a laser beam or even a USB cord or a wire. And I have a magnet at the base of my spine, and I have a magnet at the center of the earth. And that line just invisibly is drawn to the center of the earth. And then boom. So you can ground right here and now, and so can I. And we can be more present. What that almost does is it almost brings in our energy field. So the problem with empaths, I call them out of control healers, because their energy field is so far and so wide, it's filling up the whole house or the whole building or the whole world, and everybody else's energy field steps into theirs. So we've not been taught how to bring that energy field into, let's say, arm's length around us. And when it's arm's length around us, it's much easier to manage, right? We can... I teach a symbol on the edge of my aura so that people think where Amirah is out there in that symbol. So anybody looking for me, or their energy, or they don't like something I say, or they do, either way, that energy goes into that symbol, not into my energy field. So it's a decoy, not a protective field, because you're an idiot if you think you can protect yourself from energy moving. It's an absolute idiotic belief system.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I have never heard that perspective, but it absolutely clicks with me, because what I'm learning just as of late, because that is the message, right? Like, especially in my Reiki training, that was the message I received was, imagine this ball of golden light wrapped around you and protecting you. And that it's partly intention, right? If the intention makes you feel good, but it's still not going to stop your energy field from bumping up against your environment, because everything is energy, and we're always communicating with our little antennas, right?
Well, it's naivete, right? And as we're growing up as humans and learning about the quantum field, science is expanding, right? And it's merging with spirituality. There's something to be said about the golden light, and I use that too. However, it's not going to protect you. And it is a high, when you can bring it into the physical body, gold is the highest frequency that we can hold. in the physical body for an extended amount of time, it's probably not going to stay there forever. But even if it's for a few minutes, or even if you realign with that high frequency, it changes the dynamics of everything within, right? So, but there's no absolutes to any of this. And anybody that talks about, oh, bring in red light for the first chakra and orange for, that's BS too. And here's why I can say that is because I've got a highly developed sense, a clairvoyant sense, that my third eye. So when I look at the energy of the second chakra, let's say, our emotional center, our empathic, we're sucking it all up, right? From everybody and everything. The news from, I'm picking up feelings and thoughts from people that are, there was a friend of mine in California and I reached out to her. I said, hey, is everything going okay with you? And she goes, oh yeah, I've been thinking about you for the last couple of weeks. Should we set up a time? So I was feeling it, right? So I reach out to her because her energy at some level was creeping in and finding a plug-in to me because she wanted to communicate with me. So I hate people like that. I just wish they'd pick up the phone, or I wish they'd send a text, right? But then I do that with my students too. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure who this is. So I start reaching out to everybody. Back to the second chakra. When I look at any of the energy fields, I see wheels within wheels of spinning light. And the best way I can describe that is it looks to me like a kaleidoscope. Have you ever seen a kaleidoscope?
Mm-hmm.
So they're moving. The patterns are always changing. The colors are always changing, right? So how in God's name can orange be the color to bring that into harmony? You, Victoria, might be needing to work on something that, let's say, I don't know, you're looking for a recipe from your grandmother. There's something with your grandmother that you've been feeling like you wanted to connect with or demonstrate or resurrect, right? Maybe a tradition. Well, it might be for you to bring that chakra into harmony, might be a soft blue. Is blue one of your favorite colors, by the way?
It is my favorite color.
Because I see that, yeah. So I just see that that's more for you right now. Next week, it could be turquoise. It could be a green. It could be a yellow. So as we evolve, as we resolve and grow and change, there's other aspects to us that want some healing or looking for attention. And so those would be different colors that we might bring into that space to bring it into balance. Does that make sense how it works?
Absolutely. I mean, because you're speaking my language of biofield tuning, which is using tuning forks in your energy field to like basically bring harmony through sound to the energy field. And when you brought up the nature piece, I think what happens is our bodies become in sync. It's like those.
Yes, we reverberate.
Yes.
Pick up the vibes and they help us. They're literally grounding.
Recalibrating us. Yes.
They've got roots. What do? They're grounded.
Yeah.
So we're trying to remember that part of us, I think, when we go to nature, because we are interconnected to everything. And so we need help with that as humans, because we're so much in our intellect. We're so busy. Our mind is just, and so we don't know how to have that balance. The trees are great teachers to us. So grounding is the number one thing. The biggest problem I find empaths have, highly sensitive individuals, is they're not grounded. And so then we work through the process of second most important thing is clearing energy that's not you. Because the simple truth is, when you start releasing what you're not, your mother's beliefs, your dad's beliefs, the family patterns, your unconscious biases or thoughts that you had that, let's say, that white light could protect you, right? All of those belief systems, when we start reducing those, minimizing those, all of a sudden the true you, the true essence, and the true gifts can just shine bright.
I resonate with that because the opposite of releasing who you're not is getting to know who you are, is getting
It
to know
happens,
yourself.
but it happens gently in the process of releasing what you're not.
Right. And that's why too, like every session in biofield tuning is so different. Like that's no
Right.
session is the same. Just like you said, it's like,
Right.
you know, this analogy of peeling back the onion, but let's say the artichoke, you know, it's like peeling back an artichoke. It's the same. Like once you get to the heart,
yeah,
you
or
know.
chiseling away at a piece of wood to create a
Mhm.
sculpture or concrete. Yeah. And so, you know, I think tuning forks are awesome. I know in ancient history, ancient mystery schools, they used sound bowls, they used bells, they used rattles to help us, you know, that energy. It sends like a ripple. What I use is a tool that I explode things in my mind. So it's like a stick of dynamite in my mind. Let's say I feel like some pain in my left leg. And gee, I never felt that pain before. What is that? All pain is stuck energy, whether it's mental pain, emotional, spiritual, or physical, stuck energy. And so to release that block, I just visualize blowing up a stick of dynamite or another symbol. And that gently releases it out of my field. So in a very short amount of time. So what I'm doing, and so the beauty of your tuning forks is it's taking away stuff we don't know about. The beauty of getting conscious to knowing what we're clearing, I find, is a step in raising our conscious awareness, because it is about being conscious healers. And the other thing is tuning forks aren't always available. Singing bowls or bells and those things aren't always available.
Good point.
So for me, the work I do is teaching independence and you know, self-reliance.
I love that. So aside from the stick of dynamite, besides grounding and things like that, like these mental, it's really just using your imagination
That
and
is called
connecting.
clairvoyance, and that is clairvoyance. Most people don't realize that. They say to me, I want to open up my third eye. And, you know, this is like the big buzz, right? The truth of it is you're doing it already, but you're not conscious to what you're doing. And so all those thoughts that you're creating your experience with. So when we start using visualization, which is using your inner eye, using your inner abilities to connect with what you might call imagination, that's really the same thing. And so when we direct the energy, then we are empowering ourselves for healing.
Is meditation a piece of your work as well?
Again, there's thousands and thousands of different types of meditation. All the work I realized my efforts ended up directing me to, and the NDE proved to me, is that I'm an energy being. However, I'm being a human right now. And in this human experience, in the 3D place, we need practical experiences. Our job is to stay present. We are not present. We are not grounded and consciously aware of what we're doing from minute to minute. Have you ever been driving down the road and missed your exit?
It just happened the other day. I was driving, I had to go somewhere and just totally just kept on driving.
Have you opened
Missed
an
the turn.
Amazon package and threw the thing that you bought in the garbage and held the package in your hand?
No, but I have looked for my cell phone when it's been in my back pocket.
Have you ever, you know, cleaned off your dinner plate and thrown the fork right in the garbage with all the food, you know, stuff like
Yeah,
that?
the mindless. Yep. Yep.
So that's a moment where your spirit wasn't present. You weren't aware. You snapped out for just a nanosecond. In some cases, driving past your exit, it was longer than that until you got back in your body and you realized, oh my God, I've got now another 5 minutes because I got to go back and forth. Yeah. So, it's learning how to be aware, learning how to be present is the power of actual manifestation.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, not just the manifestation piece, but because I can tie this to grief. And I feel like I'm being called to, in that when we are so emotionally wound up and our energy is just bound up within us, it's almost impossible to be present in that moment, and we can't
Yeah.
focus, you can't concentrate, and so
No.
accidents are more likely to
Yes.
happen. You're more likely to get hurt or trip or fall, or you know call the wrong person, or weird stuff like that, but you don't tie it to
Not
grief,
being
you don't
present.
tie it. Yeah.
And then the poor empath or a person that's grieving, and the trauma is just building and building and building, and then you do like I did, you withdraw
Mm-hmm.
and you stop really living, and you become a victim, and um blaming the big ugly world. But the truth is, it's all us. It's all us, our creations.
And you know what? That's empowering to know for anyone listening, because you have the power to change it. That's the
It might not
empowering
feel like
piece.
it.
Right.
Believe me, it may not feel like it. I've been there where I'm like, oh God, I just don't. And I, for a whole year, I just barely dragged my butt to the class. And I sat there thinking, I'm seeing black. I'm not doing anything. And then all of a sudden it was like the lights turned on. I was my own biggest enemy, and I was resistant in a lot of different ways, and ways that I didn't even know I was. I wasn't intentionally trying to be resistant, but that, family programming and anger and fear and doubt were layer and layer and layer that just kept me living small. And it was only just the last couple of years that I mean, because of, I guess, so many things have changed in technology. And I guess I got sick and tired of seeing these charlatans and fraudsters out there professing lies to people and non-truths about this work, and the truth of behind being an empath, that you don't have to use that as your crutch. I am an empath. I'm probably the biggest out of control healer, right? But it's something that you can unlearn. And I don't mean not to be compassionate. I mean learning how your energy is interfering in somebody else's healing and you don't even know it. We as empaths, we're typically healers, want to help people, want to see everybody do better, right? And feel good. But what makes me think that my energy is actually going to heal them? It's a lie, because
Mm-hmm.
that person's energy needs to be their energy in their body. And that needs to be refined so it can heal itself. It's different than Amirah's energy. In fact, my energy, and many of my students, we always do an exercise of separating energies when we finish the class, because energy between you and I is exchanging, even if you're, thousands of miles away. Anybody listening is probably feeling my energy. So after this, I will be bringing my energy back. And so the same is true with all my clients, is I give them their energy back as there's an exchange. So the idea as we progress is we build a more condensed sphere of our own frequency within the body and outside the body. When it becomes more condensed and more higher percentage of uniquely you and your spirit, I mean, the world of possibilities just becomes infinite.
So what does that look like? Is it another visualization of almost like this bringing in of like
Well, again,
hugging
I think
yourself?
a healthy aura is about arm's length around. So it is part of that process, but it's a process of that I take people through, is clearing the chakras as well as clearing the layers of the aura. And also just a continual amount of clearing, becoming more aware, clearing, becoming more aware. We become more brighter. Look at our body. When we're feeling good, we we smile at people, we give gifts, we just are more generous and more creative and more flexible and more, letting the guy get out of, of the parking lot before you and sit, and we're just more patient and loving.
Mhm.
So I don't think after we do that, there's much to do. It's just enjoying what things light us up.
I'm curious if you're familiar at all with human design.
Somewhat, yes. I haven't explored it extensively. I've got some friends that have done it. Yeah.
I've been recently diving a little deep, and I dabbled in the rabbit hole over a year ago, and I've recently, I don't know, timing, I suppose. And it's really connecting with me. But what I'm learning though is, as I'm a manifester energy type for human design, and we have this repelling, manifestors have this repelling closed aura. And when I first learned about that, it was kind of like, ugh, well, people just don't like me, you know. And the thing is, I don't see, like, I'm within my own aura. I'm within my own closed aura. But it's not that I'm repelling people, it's that my energy, either you're ready to receive it or you're not. And then there's this energetic exchange, right? Like, it's too big or too much for you at this time, but maybe in the future it won't be. I'm just really, and I'm trying to find how this connects to the energy work that I already do, the energy
Okay.
work that I do, and just really starting to explore that. And I was just curious if you had any insight into that, or if that was
Well,
something that
what
you were
I
dabbling
find
in.
is I really appreciate your intellect, and I really think it's a great skill. However, I feel like most of us, and I find I get sucked down rabbit holes too, and I like to think I'm intellectual, but I'm not. I don't know. Um, by the way, meditation, I think, sharpens our intellect and sharpens our just ability to know things. They
Mm-hmm.
resonate. But I feel like the problem that in the West is that we are over intellectual. And the problem with energy, once you define it, and quantum physics has explained this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you define something, it becomes that. So I don't like to define and say you're a manifester. What manifestation to me is, everybody's a manifester, first of all.
Oh yeah,
But
we're always manifesting.
when
Yes.
somebody locks in a description and says that you're this, oh, really? I mean, I can prove that different. I can prove that by clearing certain aspects within your space, all of a sudden you redefine yourself. Then what? How does their theory or their protocol hold up with that? I don't believe that we can lock ourselves into an absolute box. I reject those, or they are repulsive to me, because that's not the nature of energy. As energetic beings, we're continually evolving. And so for right now, you might be that. That's fine. However, if you find that your energy field is repelling people or opportunities or insights or inspiration, then it's time to shift that so that it's not. And that's all. So I don't want to define you that way. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Virgo?
I'm a Pisces.
Okay. So that your very nature of Pisces is you're just swimming in and swimming out and trying to explore, and Pisces has a very difficult time with boundaries. They don't want to be penned in, right? And so I just, yeah, I think defining it is actually limiting us. Because I see and know that there's just such infinite possibilities. I mean, we could really go down some rabbit holes, Victoria, but I mean, imagine if that was just one dimension and one aspect to you, and then other lives you're completely different. So how about if we merge all of those aspects together and be the most resourceful, integrated, aligned, present incredible, abundant, beautiful soul in the present.
That's what I'm working on.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. But
But
it's not in your head. This is the mistake that everybody makes. This is not in your head. The work does not occur there.
oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I actually had a client be like, after she worked with me through her grief stuff, in the grief work that I do, she was like, people always say you have to do the work. You have to do the work. And she was like, what's the work? She's like, now I know what the work is.
Yeah.
It's the
Start clearing the
really
crap.
difficult stuff. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be difficult.
But the most difficult times in your life, like really looking at them.
Well, and there's a difference between looking at them or going to talk therapy and you talk till your face is blue about something. And I don't like that. Honestly, I'm a quick down and dirty kind of girl. I like, give it to me bottom line, give it to me simple, and let's get the results fast. That's kind of how I operate. And that's why I created these tools that I use, is because they do the job. Now let's get on to having the good stuff. It's like, hurry up. I don't want to keep living it. I don't want to keep rehearsing it, because the more we talk about it, the more we anchor it. And we're just connecting with a memory from a past experience that's got an emotional charge to it. So what if we could just have a magic wand or a stick of dynamite and blow that crap up and then start living this space that we really are? And honestly, I think that's the biggest adjustment is when we start realizing all the baggage that we're hauling around isn't us. We've identified with it, but it's not really who we are. Woohoo! Now we're on to it.
Well, and we take on the emotions, and then that adjusts our behavior, and then those behaviors repeat, and then it's just more grief and more grief.
Well, that's just how I am, and this is who I am, so you have to accept me. No. None of that's true. It's all a lie. And so some people are probably rolling their eyes right now, and some people are going, I get it. And so we are creating our destiny. We're creating in this moment your present time energy field, whatever it's consisting of, holding on to, known and unknown, that's conscious and unconscious, beliefs and memories and experiences. All of that is creating your future. So if we create a simple way to start releasing what you are not, those are just memories. You will still have the thought of it, an experience sometimes even some of the memories kind of fade away. And then you have more freedom, more energetic space to focus on what you do want to create. That's coming into the work. That's becoming conscious creators, which I believe humanity is being primed for. When we talk about waking up, that's coming to the awakening moment that we are creating our reality.
So what do you see coming up for all of us as a collective in the next year?
So that's interesting that you would say that. I noticed, like, I tuned into a couple guys on YouTube, and honestly, recently I haven't tuned into anybody because I don't want to hear. There's a lot of doom and gloom. Okay. And I do believe there's, I think there's a lot of people that want to suffer. And there's a lot of people that want to create more scarcity. I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and you can call me idealistic or Pollyanna or whatever you want. But hey, when the economy went to shit in California, the worldwide, right? California was so depressed and people were losing their houses and their jobs, and I just couldn't take it. I bailed and I went to Dubai for 5 years. Now, I say bailed. Listen, I sold my house. I sold everything and put what was left in a 5 by 5 foot storage unit. I went with one-way ticket. I didn't even research Dubai because it was in 2010, but I didn't research it. I knew one person. And I ended up working with members of the royal family. I ended up working in 5-star spas. because I didn't know anybody. So I needed to make and build a following. And honestly, there were times that I would curl up in a ball and cry at night, thinking I was an absolute fool because I didn't know where my next client was going to come from. And I depended completely on the work I do. Yes, I was afraid at times, but I also knew that was my point where I needed to be. And it turned out incredible. I learned so much. I explored so much. It was a grand adventure. I learned so much from the Muslim people and their true beliefs in religion. They believe in this energy work. They talk about the jinn, these unseen beings in their religion. They don't talk openly too much about it because they don't want to call them up or conjure them in, right? And so I just I just have an adventurous part to my spirit. So for me to be around that culture and just to let go and be around incredible wealth, to just drink it, like going to the forest, right? You feel and plug into the trees. That's what Dubai was for me, is plugging into that. So when I look at scarcity versus sufficiency, I remember that, right? Experience. I've just threw myself out there. I put every part of myself out there. And I more than survived, I thrived.
It's interesting. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up too, because this human design rabbit hole I've been going down, the aspect of environment really is an important piece of it, because when you aren't aligned with the environment that is conducive to you thriving, you can struggle. And so, yeah, our environment plays a huge role. I mean, if we're surrounded by stuff and just piles and junk, and I mean, what does that, I mean, I've always believed that
like hoarders,
it's a reflection of what's going on internally.
Absolutely.
I've always believed that, change your environment.
Yeah.
Change your environment. Things
and
start
change
to
the people you hang out with.
That includes the people that you surround yourself with.
Like there's a saying, if you can't change the people you're with, then change the people you're with. There's certain resistances that people have, and they're just not good for us as we grow and, thrive. And there's a lot of people that don't want to see somebody thrive. They're more comfortable being in lack. And then they compare. I came from a family like that. They didn't celebrate wins. They didn't cheer me on. They'd rather drag me down. And sometimes we have friends. Sometimes it's somebody that you thought was your best friend, but you start to wake up to the fact that they don't really celebrate the things you do. Then it's time to find new friends. And the other thing is, once we step into coming into our alignment, our true divine design, then we attract people naturally, really effortlessly, and very quickly to support us, giving us our answers or a new direction. Dubai was never on my radar. And it was only a client that I had worked with, and her life completely changed. She was a doctor in Chicago, and everything completely radically changed. And she went back to where she was born, which was Dubai. She said, Amirah, you need to come to Dubai. I said, well, great. Find me somebody to help promote me and I'll go. See, I had an open mind. Mm-hmm. Through caution, I set up some steps that would be reasonable, practical. I went for 2 weeks, came back with 2 pockets full of cash, and went, I love this. Say, who doesn't, right? And so I went, okay, I'm going, with no plan. And I'm a business major, right? I had a business degree, and I knew how to set things up practically, but it just didn't work like that for me. And so I think my whole life, back to one of your earlier questions, that I've been trusting my intuition, but it wasn't validated. Like, I didn't have an environment or family that would talk about any of these things. And I didn't have a family that was risk takers. So, but even trusting our intuition, like, I would need to go to the grocery store now for this. I don't know why I could wait later, but no, I need now. Well, I might run into somebody that, or a situation, or maybe I've avoided an accident, or maybe I just picked up something and then somebody drops in, and so I had it. So whatever those intuitive nudges are, I learned to trust mine. They've always been with me, but I did close them down for a good part of my life. And depression, grief, trauma, all of those situations will shut that down. And all the work I do now is to help people thrive in whatever all capacities of their life, and to be aligned with who they truly are, because that's the true abundance. That's the true gift of being alive. That's our purpose, to know who we are.
That's a fantastic way to end this episode, because I 1000% agree. We are on the same mission of that, helping people understand themselves, get to know themselves, and lose all these aspects of ourselves that, were put on us.
Yeah.
Whether through expectations or lack of boundaries as kids, or, these beliefs and patterns and all of those. So, how can people work with you?
They can go to my website, amirahhall.com, and that's Amirah, Amirah, and Hall, Hall. And I've got some free gifts on the website. You can chat with me and we can talk about your next step. I have a reset program that's a great place to start. It's a video training. And I also have a masterclass that's available on my website about energy. It's called Manifestation Mastery. And yeah, so there's a number of things. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm out and about. And so
Anything exciting new coming up, or that you're...
I have a class coming up. It's called Intuitive Superpowers. It's a master class that's coming up. But that's Wednesday. That's tomorrow.
Oh, shoot.
So
Okay.
that won't work. But go to get on my newsletter and to get onto my list so that you can keep updated for any upcoming events other than that. But yeah, that's the most current that I've got. I will be launching a 6-month training, which is an in-depth development of not only your intuitive abilities, but your abilities to manifest. It involves the chakra healing. It involves the mastery. And developing the third eye, developing your clairvoyant abilities and all your other spiritual abilities. So it's a robust mentoring program of 6 months. So that will be launched in October. So if you're interested, reach out to me and we can see if that's appropriate for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming back and for doing this part 2 with me. I'm glad we got to dig into the practical things that can help people move forward, and anything energy stuff. I love talking about all of this juicy stuff that really was not an aspect of my life up until maybe 4 years ago. So I'm still very much a newbie.
Well, congratulations. You're doing amazing. You're doing awesome work. And it's such a delight to witness you look to me like this beautiful flower that's blooming right under the sun. It's lovely.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being you and for doing the work that you do.
Thank you.
And remember, when you unleash your heart, you unleash your life. Much love.